Welcome everyone who is here with us for our first ever virtual career summit, Education Workforce Summit. My name is Andrea Ray, and I have the pleasure to serve as the President CEO of the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce. Originally, about a year ago, we were planning for this Education Workforce Summit to coincide with a multi-district career fair at the Showware Center, which was always scheduled for Thursday, April 30th. Certainly, our times have changed, and we have had to rethink and refocus all of the work that we do. And so we really appreciate that you are making the time to join us here virtually. As Renata mentioned earlier, we are recording this program. We're recording this program for several reasons, one of which is so that students who aren't able to join and participate live today are able to watch it later and learn about career and job functions that might be available to them. And also so that we can expand and share the work that we're doing. The Education and Workforce Committee at the Chamber of Commerce is committed to providing opportunity to increase equity and access for all of our career partners and our students. Again, we had hoped to be at the Showware Center, and we were thrilled that Mayor Ralph, the mayor of Kent, was still able to welcome us to this virtual summit here this morning. So it is my honor to introduce the mayor of the great city of Kent, Dana Ralph, to give our official welcome to this virtual event. Mayor Ralph.
Thank you, Andrea. I want to start with a thank you to Seattle Southside and all of the wonderful folks, partners that have helped put this event on. It just speaks to the ingenuity and creativity of this region, and I am very, very grateful for it. So thank you so much. I want to start by just really welcoming everybody, saying I hope you're all doing well in these sort of crazy upside down times. Things are different, but we're managing, and this is, again, an example of how we just, we keep on going, we figure out a way. As Andrea said, I am the mayor of the city of Kent, and I am very pleased to welcome you all to the Pacific Northwest Education and Workforce Summit today. Holding the summit virtually is a testament to the importance of workforce development efforts and one of the many examples of resilience that is shown in our region as we support each other through these unprecedented challenges. It's an example of our innovation and creativity and harnessing of technology to meet our goals. If somebody would have said to any one of us just a few months ago, is this possible? Is it something that's going to be effective and spectacular? I'm pretty sure we all said, well, why would we ever do that? But here we are, and I'm grateful to be a part of this today. I want to brag a little bit about Kent to everyone. So Kent is a city of innovation and technology. 50 years ago, the lunar rover was developed here by the Boeing company, and currently Blue Origin is in our valleys sending rockets into space and bringing them back to Earth. So really proud of the technology innovation that the city of Kent is able to be home to. We don't just have those aerospace functions, but we've also got a lot of companies here that make machines that allow other companies to make products in the United States and all around the world. The thing about being able to craft these industrial technologies is it not only creates business, but then it in turn creates jobs, which are important to our economy and important to our students. That's part of why everybody is here today. We want to talk a little bit about the fact that their careers, right? We think about there's a job that you can do and go to, and a career is a path that you set yourself on, set yourself up for that includes lifelong learning and advancement and better pay and benefits and all of those kinds of things. And so really the goal of workforce development is just that, to help people set themselves off on a path for a career. It's important that our companies look at it that way as well. Our economy is dependent on specialized workforce, not just cheap labor. And sometimes those things are defined in the definition of, did you go to college or not? And I really am so excited about the fact that we're here in this region really changing that conversation. It's not a college versus college. It's about picking a path and figuring out what skills do you need to learn to become specialized in that part of the workforce. And I really think we are on the forefront of that thinking. I know even when I was in school, those were the two choices. Do you go to college or do you not? And we've got so many more options for our students these days, and that's extremely exciting. Some of the things we've got going that are helping our kids to even think about career paths: Washington First Robotics, Blue Origins Club for the Future, STEM festivals. All of those things we're hopeful are sparking the interest of our kids, of our students, and letting them know that there's great opportunity in those career paths. I know that our economic development department here in Kent are doing a great job helping build some of those partnerships with industries. We're working with all of our local K through 12 groups, as well as our colleges. And I know my neighboring cities are doing the same thing. So collectively as a region, as Seattle Southside, as the South County, however you want to put it, we're doing great work to make sure that our students are being connected. I just want to finish with this idea about the talent pipeline, right? It is our job collectively to make sure that pipeline is full. Our employers, they depend on it. They depend on having that skilled labor. And there's nothing that I want more than to make sure our kids that are right here, our students that are growing up here, have the opportunities to fill those jobs in those specialized and technical careers, and that we're making sure to give everyone those opportunities. So again, I want to say thank you to Seattle Southside, everyone that was involved in this day, and really looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph. Again, really appreciate it. Again, when the chamber asks businesses, about the biggest issues that they face, one of the top responses is workforce related, right? So being able to find those qualified candidates. So we recognize that this is a complex challenge, and that finding solutions, as Mayor Ralph said, it's going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of regional collaboration and partnership with business and education. The purpose of this event was, and still is in its virtual format, to connect business, education, and career partners and leaders in our community to share information and insight on current trends, best practices, to inspire and prepare today's students for tomorrow's workforce. So now I'd like to introduce Renata Emerson. She's our Membership and Programs Manager, and she will go over a little bit of housekeeping about how this virtual summit will go. Renata?
Thanks, Andrea. And again, thanks everybody for being a part of today's summit. We're really excited just in the preparation of the conversation that we're about to dive into to make sure that you can experience this optimally. A few things that I want to go over. First of all, I want to make sure that you're in the correct view. So if you take your cursor and hover over the top right corner, you should see the word gallery view. That's, if you're in gallery view, then you will see all of the speakers kind of equal squares, Brady Bunch style, on your screen. If you're in speaker view, then you will see my face prominent on your screen, and that will allow you to see the presentations, to see the different videos and things that we'll be showing on the screen optimally. So it's a little bit backwards display-wise. If you're in speaker view, which is the view that we want, then your option in the top corner says gallery view. So it's telling you what the other option is. So again, I just want to make sure that you can see my face large right now, so that as we go to the presentations, you'll be able to see those fully. You'll be able to see the showcase videos and pitches fully. And in addition to that, all of our attendees are currently muted, and they will stay muted for the duration of the webinar. We do have a Q&A portion, and for that I will encourage you to use the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. You'll click the Q&A icon, and you'll be able to type in your question, and one of our great staff members, Megan, will be monitoring that throughout the duration of the summit. So please don't feel that you need to wait to enter your question. You can do that at any time, and there will be a dedicated time for us to address those questions, so that way you don't have to worry about remembering them to a certain point. Go ahead and type them in as they come up, and let us know who, if there's a specific person that you on the panel that you want to address, let us know who that is. If it's a general question for the full panel, let us know that as well. All right. And in addition, let's see, we do currently have a chat feature available, but right now attendees are only able to chat to panelists. And so that the real feature is going to be Q&A. Any questions or things that you want to address, you can put that in the Q&A. If there's something that's a technical issue or something that you are experiencing that you want one of our staff to address, you're welcome to put that in the chat to the panelists, and our staff member will be able to address that. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Andrea.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much, Renata, and thank you all for being here as well. Our chamber was founded on the belief that we are better and stronger together, and our partnerships with our cities, with our elected officials, with business, and with our workforce is key to our success as we move our community forward. Wanted to thank our elected officials that have joined us virtually today. Again, thank you to Mayor Dana Ralph of the City of Kent, Mayor Alan Eckberg from the City of Tukwila, and Senator Karen Kaiser. So thank you for also making the time to be here virtually with us this morning, and thank you for your service. I want to also just thank our sponsors. Again, we wouldn't be here without the help and the support of our sponsors. I want to thank Alaska Airlines, State Farm, and as mentioned earlier, this event was a larger scale event that had a committee of almost 30 people involved to make it possible. And I want to be able to acknowledge all of them. The school districts of Auburn, Federal Way, Highline, Kent, Renton, and Tukwila. Laborers Local 242, Dale Bright, you'll hear from him a little later as one of our panelists. The U.S. Army and National Guard, WorkSource, King County, and the Chamber's Education and Workforce Development Committee. Bruce McIntyre is here with us. He's the chair of that committee. And of course, our board of directors. Would also like to thank our Civic Circle of Excellence partners, the Port of Seattle and the Seattle Regional Tourism Authority, and of course, all of our members and invested partners. We wouldn't be here able to serve you if it wasn't for your support, your commitment, your dedication to our community. It is now my pleasure to honor and introduce our keynote speaker and today's facilitator for our panel discussion, Mary Furtakis. Mary Furtakis is the CEO of her own consulting business, specializing in P-12 education and equity issues, including strategic planning and resource allocation through an equity lens. As a consultant with the NSBA Equity Department, she has provided training and assistance to various school board associations on equity and inclusion issues. Mary served on the Tukwila School Board for 22 years, representing a school district that has been called the most ethnically diverse in the United States. She is the founder of the Tukwila Children's Foundation, which helps meet the unmet needs of children in the Tukwila community, serves on the board of Stillwaters, a nonprofit serving homeless families in Tukwila, and on the board of the National Center for Restorative Justice. Mary, take it over. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm really pleased to be here today and to join all of you. One of the things I would like to do at the beginning is just acknowledge the fact that because of technology, we can do this. And because my theme today is what if, and re-envisioning what we could do, taking that step back a little bit and taking a look at what's going on, I just want to acknowledge the fact that we're in the middle of something unprecedented right now, and it's causing us to have to rethink a whole lot of things. It's identifying inequities that many of us who live in South King County have known about for years, for decades, and it's making it difficult to pivot away from those. And this is an opportunity that we all have to be contributing to making it different as we go forward. So I want to just dive right in here and frame this with a really interesting way of looking at the crisis that we're in. You're looking at two characters from Chinese, Mandarin, I believe, that combined together create the word crisis. The first syllable, Renata, if you can put that up on the animation, just click. So the first syllable conveys the notion of danger. And often when we are in a crisis, that is one of the things that is first on our mind. We go into a mode of being concerned about the potential danger that we're in. The second syllable, however, means an incipient moment or a crucial point when something begins or changes. And we're also at that point with this pandemic that is unprecedented in the lifetimes of all of us. So taken together, these form the word crisis, but we can see in here there's an opportunity that presents itself if we have, if we're thinking about it in terms of something that could be a beginning or a change, and we are at that moment. So because we're at that moment, this is an opportunity for all of us participating in this call and the people in your networks to think about what would it look like if our education system looked different, and our workforce and our business sectors. So let's dream for a moment. I invite you to dream with me. What would it look like if high-speed internet access and a device for every student was the norm? Not just in Washington State, but across this country. How many barriers would that break? And there's been a lot of discussion on what challenges are happening because of students having inequities in access to high-speed internet and a device. So let's just imagine what kinds of barriers would that change? Would that eliminate for you, for people that you know, for families that you know? What would happen if we changed our current agrarian calendar that goes from September to June to a balanced year-round school calendar? And that doesn't mean you're going to school all year long. You can actually do this in 180 days, same time frame that we have now, but it's broken up completely differently. So there isn't a huge break in the summer, but breaks more often and smaller so that you can do things like get caught up, get intensive help on some things, be able for teachers to do some professional development and immediately be able to apply it. Being able to do short internships or a way to do hands-on for things that you've just learned in the last term. It's interesting that in the last pandemic in 1918, our schools look pretty much the same as they do now, in buildings with rows and in classrooms. So not much has changed, but here's an opportunity for us to think about that. What if project-based learning and internships were built into the curriculum, that this was just the way we did things for our younger students to be able to do that hands-on work and see what happens and make connections and work with each other and do problem solving. Internships, giving us a chance to see what kinds of opportunities are out there. Mayor Rolfe mentioned a whole lot of things that are happening just in Kent, but this is going on all over South King County, and to be able to see that. What if our post-secondary studies, which is to the point of we have a lot of trade and manufacturing opportunities here. We have colleges, we have associate's degrees that people can get. There's lots of post-secondary opportunities, but what if these were paid for? And what if our current post-secondary debt was retired? All the students that have graduated from college and that are over a very large age range, because people go to attend college at different ages. What if that debt was eliminated? People make economic choices based on the amount of debt that they carry. And if we want our economy to be jump-started when we go into a post-COVID-19 environment, if you're tied up with debt, you're not going to be spending money to be looking at a house or a car or other things that would stimulate the economy. So what would happen if we took steps to eliminate that type of debt? Let's move on to the business community and the workforce. What if these sectors also looked different? What if the majority of our current office-based jobs were done remotely? It's happening now. It was said it couldn't be done, but it is. So what would that look like going forward? What kinds of ramifications would result from that? Perhaps what about and what if unused office space was converted to affordable housing? I've talked to several people who this system has worked so well for them and their smaller businesses that they're giving up the leases to their current office space in Seattle. And they're going to be doing everything remotely. So what's going to happen to that space? And do we have needs in other areas, such as our housing? What if work schedules shifted to regular great pauses that would allow pollution to dissipate and the environment could heal itself? Many, many reports I've been reading and articles are talking about views in Los Angeles that people have never seen before. Satellite pictures of places in India and other countries and large urban areas that they've never been able to clearly see because of the pollution. This is being referred to as a great pause. Well, what happens when we pause what we're doing? It gives us a chance to reflect a little bit. It gives us a chance to recover from some things. It gives us a chance to do healing in different ways. What would happen if our work schedule shifted so that maybe everybody is working from home at the same time, or things start to alternate so that we're cutting down on the amount of cars on the road? I know for people who have had to drive into work, not having to sit in traffic on our freeways and our highways has been an unexpected thing that people are enjoying. What if our employee health and well-being was prioritized and we have universal health care? It's been interesting to watch what has happened in other countries with a centralized healthcare system and how they have been able to address and respond to this pandemic in a much more coordinated way than the piecemeal that we have with 50 states in this country. What if a Jubilee was declared? And for those who are unfamiliar with that, this is a very ancient custom that it has happened in both the Jewish faith every 75 years as laid out in the Old Testament, what's called the Old Testament, and also when there has been a transition of power in countries where they've traditionally had royalty and a king or a queen. At that time, a Jubilee was declared, and that meant that debt that people had accrued during the old time period or during the prior 75 years is eliminated, and people start out fresh. That may sound far-fetched, but that was actually done in after World War II. Germany went from, it converted their currency from the Reichsmark to the Deutschmark, and they started over. And today they have the most vibrant, healthy economy in Europe. So we have a modern day example of where this happened. So again, this is an opportunity that 3 months ago, I wouldn't even have been talking about things like this. And, or if I did, people would be laughing about it and saying it'll never happen. But we've had a number of things that people said would never happen that are happening now. And we're adapting and we're responding, and we have an unprecedented opportunity to do things differently and to dream and reimagine what some of our systems could look like, particularly in education and workforce. But you've seen I've touched on some other things that brought up healthcare, that brought up housing, and all of this is interrelated. And that interrelatedness is something for us to be looking at as we rethink our systems. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Andrea, I'll give it back to you.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much, Mary, for sharing your thoughts about, what if. We know that our economy is a diverse, ecosystem, and our education systems are too. So love the opportunity to just, think about, what if things could be more interconnected, and what if we challenge some thinking that previously, you're right, would never have even been challenged. So again, I appreciate your thoughts. And now we're going to transition into our panel discussion. And so again, today is an opportunity to talk to some of the Pacific Northwest top workforce and education players about challenges, opportunities, and strategies that they see for success. And now I'd like to introduce you to our exceptional speakers. First, we have Dr. Susan Enfield, a former high school teacher. Susan served as Chief Academic Officer and then as Interim Superintendent for Seattle Public Schools before joining Highline in 2012. She previously held leadership positions in Evergreen Public Schools, in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland Public Schools, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Welcome, Dr. Enfield, Superintendent from Highline. Really appreciate it, you being here. Next, we have Eileen Paris, currently the Vice President of Seattle Goodwill Job Training and Education, a nonprofit organization that provides quality, effective employment training and basic education to individuals experiencing significant barriers to economic opportunity. Previously, she was the Executive Director of Literacy Source Washington, a nonprofit learning center for adult basic education that serves mostly immigrants and refugees in King County. She previously worked as a project-based consultant for various social impact projects and as executive director of a Philippines-based foundation whose philanthropic focus was on education, arts, and computer science programs. Welcome, Eileen. We also have Dale Bright, Political Director, Laborers Local 242. Dale has worked as a laborer for 35 years in Washington State and is a member of Leona Laborers Local 242. In his career, he has worked as a laborer, labor foreman, project superintendent, and most recently as the Political Director of Laborers Local Union 242. In 2018, he created Direct Access to Laborers Education and Careers, a 501c3, to provide pre-apprenticeship training for community members to prepare them to become an apprentice in the Northwest Laborers Apprenticeship Program. Thank you so much for being here, Dale. And next, we have Jonathan Toledo. Jonathan is a senior at Highline High School, go Pirates, and a Southside Argonauts team member. The Southside Argonauts are a group of middle and high school students on a quest for knowledge. Based at the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce, the team is organized by the Chamber Success Foundation and competes in STEM-focused competitions, such as the 2019 NASA Angles Challenge, and coming up, now all virtual, the 2020 NASA Roads on Mars Challenge. Together with their robot, Argo, the Argonauts strive to do their best and achieve their goals as a team. Mary, I'm turning it back over to you to lead this exceptional panel discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you again to all the panelists being willing to spend some time with us this morning. I had several questions that I'm going to be posing to everyone. And we are, as was mentioned earlier, we will be leaving time for Q&A at the end. If you are going to be submitting your questions, those will be relayed to us by the Southside Seattle Chamber staff as they have a chance to take a look at them. So would it definitely encourage you as we're talking and sharing, and everyone here is sharing their thoughts, please submit a question or two for them, because we're making sure that you have time to do that. And I'm also wanting to center our student voice in this discussion. So each of the questions that are going to be asked, Jonathan is going to be our first responder. So let's dive in, everybody. The first question is, what trends are you seeing in the education, business, and/or workforce sectors in our region that should be considered when creating and supporting opportunities for our youth?
All right, so one thing I have seen a lot in generally my school and kind of a lot of others is a lack of ability to connect with staff and faculty. So primarily kids of color, which dominate the majority of these Highline schools, have a hard time connecting with the staff as they're not quite representative of what we identify as. So that's kind of one trend that has been coming up.
Great. Dale?
Yeah, I see a lot more focus on preparatory and in the schools, preparing them for career ready. That's really something I've seen that's been a big drive. Business, apprenticeship training is really moving back into the schools.
Great. Susan?
In Highline, we have a commitment to recruiting, hiring, and retaining the highest quality, most diverse staff that we can. And, I think one of the things I really am wanting to emphasize is the point that Mayor Ralph made around we should be preparing students for whatever path they choose. And so, our promise in Highline is knowing every student by name, strength, and need, so they graduate prepared for the future they choose. And I think that we are getting much better, not just as a school system, but as a community, and frankly, as a nation, on equally valuing all of those paths. So I want to celebrate the student who leaves our Puget Sound Skills Center with the skills to go work straight out of high school at Boeing, right, as a machinist, as equally as I'm celebrating the student who is choosing to pursue a 4-year degree at UW in computer science. Each of those paths are critically important and worthy of celebration. And so I don't think we want to have a bifurcated system anymore where it's all about going to college. I want every student, make no mistake, I want every student to graduate from Highline prepared for college if that is what they choose. And so I think how we talk about those opportunities is critically important.
Okay. Eileen?
I want to go back to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everyone has, a lot of companies all say that they're all about the DEI lens. And so instead of making it a philosophy, let's make sure it's implemented. And at Seattle Goodwill, we make sure of that by ensuring that our staff and our team looks like the community that we serve. And so that's really a vital and a priority for us. And so when we're looking for employers, when we start doing job placement for our young people, we do trainings with these employers to make sure they know how to treat youth of color and also youth coming, going into these industries. And a lot of it, it's that DEI lens to understand how do you welcome youth, not just the youth or the age or where they're coming from, but youth of color with different backgrounds and experience. And so that goes back to that DEI lens. If you're really all about equity, inclusion, and diversity, then have the proper training to welcome the young people in a way that is not just culturally competency, but really actually living it as part of your social fabric or culture.
Great. Jonathan, I want to circle back to you and see if, in listening to what's been said, if there's anything else that you'd like to bring up as a part of trending that you're seeing.
Well, I think maybe a lack of dealing with students, or with our grade, we were pretty bad. There was a lot of students who failed and kind of went under detection. So maybe some kind of system in order to help catch these kids before they dive further into like a rut. So like some kind of mentor system.
Great, thank you. I'd like to make the same offer to Eileen, Dale, and Susan if in listening to the other thoughts, if something else has come up for you.
I'd like to build on what Jonathan said, because he's naming something that I think has always been really important and of concern to me, first as a teacher and now as a superintendent. And I think that what we are living through right now in response to COVID-19 is amplifying it. So, we have made a commitment with our staff that we are connecting with our students on a weekly basis. And that's a challenge for some. And there are some students that we have not been able to connect with. Mm-hmm. And it is the students who had relationships with adults in their school prior to this that were able to make those connections. But I think what this has done has given a renewed sense of purpose and urgency and energy among all of us as educators, that we now have to really connect with our kids, especially the ones that we weren't connecting with before. And I would say that we have to start with an apology. And that apology is, I'm sorry that it took this for us to figure out how to reach you. And we're now going to use this as an opportunity to, as Jonathan said, connect with students from a place of respect and honoring who they are and asking what they need from us as the adults. And so that is one of the positives that I hope comes out of what has been an incredibly challenging time for all of us.
Eileen, did you want to add?
You know, it's a really tough time, and you know, we have case managers and employment specialists assigned for all our youth programs, and so they are on the phones constantly every day checking in. And I think the challenge here is, in how long can we engage them? You know, when we have these field trips and now we're doing virtual online, and now we're deploying tablets, you know, in parking lots, and really trying to continue their growth. And it's tough with, you know, things that we can't control. And we're always conscious about that, the fact that, you know, there are judgments and also just the standard of living and things that are occurring right now with a lot of young people. And so it is really making sure that we are up to date with our TikTok and our Facebook Live and our IG, you know, and we come up with activities and content that continues to engage them in a relevant way, but also understanding that this is not a regular day. This is a new norm, but it's still being very compassionate. And I think that's staying relevant is really just being there for them and ensuring that there is someone for them.
Dale?
Good.
You're good. Jonathan, I'd like to give you a chance if you'd like the final word on this question before we move on.
I don't think I have anything else to say.
Okay, great, because you're going to be queued up for the next one too. So this next one is a two-part question. What inequities and silos do you see in the education, business, and workforce sectors that impede each sector's ability to partner with each other to support youth success in school and career, is the first part. And the second part is, what would it take to eliminate those inequities and silos? Jonathan?
I think kind of going back to like the staff and how they weren't kind of reflective of the student or the student body. Primarily when we had incidents that kind of sparked a lot of debate, there wasn't really any adults to turn to. And when we do get these adults, it's really, really nice, but it would be nice to have like kind of areas where people could congregate and kind of connect with these adults that they kind of look up to, instead of having to have every single member as diverse as possible, which is very difficult to like instill into the system.
Got it. Eileen?
This is a very heavy loaded question within a question. You know, I think that the inequities is the assumptions. I think that we need to stop the assumptions of, you know, with the Seattle Public School, for example, we talk about, you know, they talked about not giving them homework packets because it would create a digital or equitable or inequitable divide, but it actually widened the gap even more at the fact that they weren't given the same access as other school districts. And I think that we should really refrain from making assumptions of what our youth can do and cannot do, and really be able to plan ahead. And I know that hindsight, we could all do better, but you know, if we can deploy, other schools can deploy laptops or, you know, access to computers, I think that we should be able to do that to other students as well.
Okay. What would it take to eliminate that situation that you were just describing?
You know, I think that's important is to really partner. It's all about partnership, and we are the second Silicon Valley. in the tech sector. And yet, we waited for Amazon or Microsoft to come in later on. I think the partnership should have been done way before that. Those should have been lined up. A lot of other schools have better access than our Seattle public school, or any public school, which is majority youth of color. And I feel that there's still kind of a generational or kind of territorial of public schools don't have access for this, but yet private school or other schools in other districts like Bellevue will have this. So it's an access point that I think that we need to make sure that private sector is involved to make sure that we cut that divide of, youth of color or South Side can't get this, but yet the East Side can get this.
Dale?
I've seen a lot of these being removed, actually. We've been working with the school districts so well, getting access and getting the stigmatism of construction taken off and letting people realize that there is a career in construction for you. You don't have to do the 4-year college path. And so we're really been doing great work with a lot of the school districts. Highline School District partnered with us really well with the Skills Center. Seattle School District's negotiating a groundbreaking community workforce agreement with us. Going to call it a student workforce agreement, where we can allow the kids to access through a priority hire agreement the projects if they complete certain things. So the school districts are really coming to us. We've been here for quite a while. That's something that I've been working on for about 10 years, and it's been nice to see the change where they realize now that, here's 35 years in the industry sitting right here, and these are great careers. These are living wage. So it's really nice. We're getting invited back. We came back in. I just hope that this COVID doesn't squash the economy when we're on the verge of really making a lot of strong headway with the Career Connect learning.
Awesome. What would it take to scale this up more across the region, the success you're seeing?
Oh, it's actually being done. There's actually some school districts are doing more than others, and there's up north, they've done a really good job of getting a pre-apprenticeship in Mukilteo. Oh, geez, Marysville. It started with an M up north. Didn't have to go to Canada to get to it, but yeah, they've done a really good job and already have the pre-apprenticeship. The Peninsula has a pre-apprenticeship, and it's just got to get, like, the Skill Center recognizes a pre-apprenticeship with the state, and we've got to get these pre-apprenticeship recognized in the school districts. And like I say, there's other people already. I'm copying other people, and it's really nice. It's fun to have other people to learn from.
Awesome. Susan?
Yeah, so I think I'll build on something that you started with, Mary, in your keynote, and that Eileen has highlighted as well, that this whole, our response to this pandemic has significantly daylighted the inequities within not just our public education system, but our society writ large. And I think one of the biggest examples of that is the digital divide. I think we need to, and this is something that I'm advocating for vociferously at both the local, state, and national level right now, because I believe that distance learning, remote learning, is likely going to be a part of traditional public K-12 education in some way moving forward. And unless every student has reliable internet access from home, they are being denied a fair, appropriate public education, which they are entitled to because they are children in the United States of America. And the fact that in the shadow of Microsoft and Amazon, just here in the Puget Sound, that I have at least 25% of my students in Highline who don't have internet access is unconscionable. It is unconscionable. And it's time for us to have a real conversation around making sure that our public schools are delivering equitably for our kids. And I think too, it's going to become abundantly clear that we can't do this alone, right? Mm-hmm. It's bigger than just one sector. And that's why I think this conversation is so important, because we don't have time anymore for the turf wars and the silos that you referenced at the beginning of this question, Mary. Like I was just on a panel just before this for someone else, and I said, we all have to be on Team Kid. Right? This is about investing in our children so that we are in turn investing in our economy. I mean, that's what this is about. You know, I feel that my job as a superintendent and as a community member isn't just to ensure that our students are educated and graduate prepared for whatever future they choose. But I also have a responsibility to make sure that we are supporting our local economy and our local workforce. And that means getting back to that notion of celebrating all the paths our kids choose. I want our students to know of all of the career opportunities that exist here in the Puget Sound. And there's a wonderful array of them. And are we communicating that to our students as well as we should? And I don't think we are, especially for our families who perhaps come from another country and aren't as familiar with what those career pathways and opportunities are. And one of the things I've been saying for years is we really need a broad and big and loud marketing campaign. You know, I've always said, like, a did you know that, you know, with this set of skills that you can get from a skills center, you can graduate prepared for this job, and this job will pay you and give you benefits, and then probably invest in your education. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think would take all of us coming together to pull off, but I think it could have really produce major dividends for us as a community.
Yeah. Jonathan, do you want to build on what's been said?
Right. Yeah, I'd like to put on the aspect of access to technology. I think what Susan said is very important, how we live in kind of in the shadows of like the tech giants. Like we have like Boeing, Microsoft, all these big companies that are super progressive, but only kind of for their own needs and interests. And they don't do much to contribute to kind of the surrounding area in terms of school, not as much as we would want them to. And I think it's important to try to get them to like at least pay more attention to this kind of inequality that we have between access to technology.
Mary, can I just build, and Jonathan's exactly right. And I do just want to say, we have amazing generosity and philanthropy in this region as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to demonize anybody. I can tell you right now that Alaska, Boeing, Microsoft, all of them do tremendous things to invest in education in the region. So this isn't about blaming and shaming. This is about naming the fact that we now have something in front of us that we have to address, and that it's going to require us all to come together to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Dale or Eileen, would you like to add anything?
I think it's been said. It just widens already the divide that we already knew existed, especially for the most vulnerable populations and communities.
Yeah. Again, throwing out the dreaming thing, again, some of the conversations that have been taking place as a result of this, that people would have laughed you out of the room. There's, you know, we're having an opportunity to just put things out on the table. I've been hearing things like, why is not high-speed internet a public utility? You know, just some of these things, you know, making it embedded as a piece of what we do and how we do things. So yeah, we could have it's good to dream. I mean, and it's good to talk about this. And, you know, a question I would have for school districts too is many of the districts in this region have run tech levies. Mm. And, you know, why has it not been a part of that process to do things like have high-speed internet access or Wi-Fi hotspots on our buses, or for our city governments with the vehicles that they have to be able to, you know, have a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot that gives a benefit to the community. I've been harping on that for years. Once I started reading how other states were doing this and taking their school buses and parking them in apartment complex parking lots in the evening so that everyone in the apartment complex had internet access. And here's a benefit to the community for investing in your schools with your tax dollars. So again, just throwing some things out for us to be thinking about differently. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Oh, nice segue in what I was just saying. What is the dream change that you would like to see happen with the unprecedented opportunity we now have to envision different education, business, and workforce systems? Jonathan?
This is a good question. I think, with kind of going back to my grade or my class of 2020, I think us coming in, we kind of struggled a lot, and in part, I think that might have been the fault of the previous attendant at the other school we attended to at Sylvester. But when we came to Highline, everything was kind of in disarray, or we were in kind of disarray, and a lot of us were not able to kind of stay afloat. And I think that maybe when we come back, we can have some kind of different system which incorporates things like hands-on activities, which doesn't just leave us in the classroom for 5 days a week, especially for seniors who are at their last year and will go into the workforce or into college or whatever they may choose. I think it's a great opportunity to try to get a new experience to actually prepare them for their future.
Eileen?
So dreaming, we have paid internships at Seattle Goodwill for our young folks. But what I'd like to do, and I'd like to see more of an increase is, and we have our youth aerospace program, we also have our manufacturing program, and we also have a maritime program. And these are key niche sectors for high livable wage job of a career pathway. And what we need to do as a dream is to scale these up in other counties as well as in other sectors like tech. I would love to have more paid internships where we do partner with private sector like the Microsoft, like the Amazon. And right now we have Boeing, we have Port of Seattle, but we need more of this, that there's paid internship for high level wage jobs that really create a career pathways for our young people, especially youth of color. Because they would never have that access unless, they go to a prestigious high school or they have somebody that works at Microsoft or at Blue Origins. Wherever that may be, it's always that kind of a hookup, But for folks who are immigrant refugee, like myself, when I came to this country, I had no idea there were internships. I didn't know there was a paid internship. I didn't speak English. English was my fourth language. And so access was quite limited. And there was that fear that you would get deported if you spoke up. And so you definitely, want to just cower and not say anything. But if we create more public and private sector, where private sector comes into the school and actually talk about, like, whether it's a panel, to talk about their careers, their own experience, to really open that kind of career trajectory that young people can start to see themselves. And also a diversity of folks from Microsoft or Amazon for these sectors to start seeing themselves in them and saying, if that person who is either API, Asian Pacific Islander, or African American, or refugee or immigrant can be in that position, I can too. I think that we need to create more paid internship for scalable wage jobs for young people. So it's not just an internship for the summer for fun, but really it's a career pathway for them, if that's the direction, or at least makes them see that the possibility. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to see that there's potential. Because at the same time, if we don't see potential and we don't think that we're going to go to college or we're going to go ahead and get that job that is way beyond that you could ever possibly think, that because you need a 4-year degree, you need a PhD or a master's. And none of us can afford that unless we have a trust fund, so that's a reality check. But I think that kind of platform where we open private sectors to come into the community and in schools, I think that would open up doors of opportunities for young people.
Susan?
Yeah, so I think that, I want to get beyond dreaming to action, right? And I think that we have an opportunity right now to have real conversations about some things that we maybe just used to dream about, right? Because I think we have to turn them into reality. So what would some examples of that be? Number one, I think to your point, creating more internship opportunities for students, which we've done in Highline over the last several years, but it's still not enough. So maybe we need to rethink what senior year looks like. right? Should Jonathan have been, well, now he's not sitting in a classroom, he's at home, but should his senior year have been spent 5 days a week in a classroom? Or should 1 day or 2 days a week be out in the workforce, right? Or doing some kind of community work, whatever that is, so that we look at that differently. Do we look at having year-round school? Should we really stick to an agrarian model of 3 months off in the summer? Now, I know that strikes fear into the hearts of many, but we have to have those honest conversations now. What about a longer school day? And that school day looks differently. I really think that we are going to have to put aside some of all of the reasons why we can't. And I think too often we're like, well, we can't. And I'm as guilty of this too. Oh, we can't because. We don't have time for that now. We really have to, I think bigger and create opportunities to act on those things that pretty much for a long time we knew we needed to do, but maybe we just didn't have the collective courage to do it. Well, now's the time.
Dale?
I really don't see any changes to my industry. Our industry has to be done on the sites. Our training is generally hands-on. Some of our classroom training is moving to the electronic, but that's generally in supplement with the work experience. So it's not really going to have an impact on us for a while, what's going on right now.
Jonathan?
Going back to what Eileen said about the kind of internships, I think it's very important. I got with the Southside Chamber of Commerce, there was an internship, it was paid, and it kind of introduced me more to kind of hands-on activities within the STEM field, and it allowed me to get experience as a team and connections with people in the workforce, and I think it was very important. And I think, yeah, increasing that would be very beneficial and it would help in ways that, as like Susan said, you can't really get from like 5 days a week in a classroom.
Awesome. Any thoughts from any of the panelists that you'd like to share kind of as a wrap up to this portion, and then we'll be moving into the Q&A. So I'd like to give each of you a chance if there's something you'd like to share with our audience from what our discussion has been that you would like to have as your summary. And I'll start with Susan.
Sure. I think I would just say that, you know the old saying, and I think Mary alluded to this earlier as well, don't waste a good crisis, right? So what my challenge to us all is, let's not waste this crisis. Let's come together as a community. And obviously I'm coming at it from the perspective of our young people, right? Let's come together as a community and figure out what we are going to do differently to better serve and support our children and young adults so that we are making our community stronger. And I think that it will have to involve really hard conversations, but I can say that especially here in Highline, that I believe our staff and our community are ready to have those conversations. And if we can broaden that to the wider community, I think we'll all be better and stronger as a result of this.
Dale?
No, I know that on the other side of this, there's a lot of the work that we've already done will have to be picked up, like the career showcase at Showware, these connections back to employers for the school. That was a great thing Donna Marsh and Chance did, bringing that out. These career fairs do need to continue. We need to expose them to the employers. And on the other side of this, that will continue to happen. It's just here in the interim is really where we're grasping a lot of straws. So it's going to be interesting. And like I said, we do need, broadband became a utility that we all have to have access to. And if anybody wants me to get on a soapbox, be more than happy to help somebody figure out how to do an initiative to create a public utility for broadband in the South King County. They've done it in other jurisdictions. So
let's talk, Dale.
Okay.
Eileen?
It is unprecedented times. And, I tell this to a lot of our students as well as my team. We can choose to either return to the old ways, which we knew didn't work, or we can go ahead and have courage. And with courage only comes out the result of resourcefulness, creativity, and innovation. And we all have experienced some creativity and innovation even today with, this panel as well as the summit being online. And I think that's the way that we should always be working on, is to always be evolving in change and to pivot to change, so we can always be relevant to the needs of our community and especially our young people. And that is to make sure that we are at the forefront, and we do not have the luxury to just relax and think the old ways, this is how we've always done it, and let's just continue to do it. No, we've got to stay relevant. We've got to be on the edge. And as they're always evolving and finding out new technology, new ways of, whether it's social media or whether it's a new trend, we also have to do the same thing on the back end to make sure that they're successful, not just in their education, but really their life skills and where their future will intend to be.
Jonathan, you get the last word.
Yeah, like how Eileen was saying, kind of like a general reformation of the school system, hasn't really changed for a long time. And the way it has been run hasn't always been the most effective. And there's a lot of flaws, but this opportunity is one that we should take advantage of. And I think we'll do great,
Awesome. So I appreciate all of the input that you've provided, and hopefully it's generated some thoughts for the audience, and I'm assuming that there are a few questions and answers we can go into. I would just say in summary myself that this is not a matter of resources. Nothing that we're talking about is actually a matter of resources. It's a matter of will. Because I have watched things happen in 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, that people have been wringing their hands over for years, saying we can't do it. Magically, we've been able to do it. So it is not resources. Do we have the will to do this, and is it a priority? Because this country, when it puts its mind to doing something, it's going to happen. And so here's our opportunity to reprioritize and make some stuff happen, to eliminate inequities, eliminate silos, re-envision how we're doing things, and actually have it be reflective of the students that we're serving and the families that we're serving for their success. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you for the Q&A part.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you so much to our panelists. I know, speaking of soapboxes, Dale, I am often on my soapbox as well, talking about how education and workforce development is economic development. So a lot of times people might wonder, why is a regional chamber of commerce that focuses on business services, providing business services, so active and engaged in education and workforce development? Why do we have a 501c3 called the Success Foundation that focuses exclusively on education and workforce development, to the point where we even have our own youth development program that Jonathan mentioned earlier, the Southside Argonauts. And that's exactly it, because this is how we serve our business community, serving our education community and our business community. These are not mutually exclusive ideas. Providing support for equity and access for education and opportunity is how we provide the workforce that our businesses need to be competitive and successful. So again, really appreciate the open conversation. And we do have some questions coming from our audience. And so one of the questions was specifically related to just pursuing different career paths. So this was specific for the railroad industry. And asking about, how could a minority pursue a career in the railroad industry right out of high school? What careers are in that same field? And so I would just, again, encourage you that the Chamber does have a internship, mentorship, matching service. And so it's a web form. Students can, fill out and say, I'm interested in a career, in construction or in the railroad or marketing and promotion or healthcare. We get that report to us, and then we're able to do matching. So we play matchmaker for opportunities, for students. And so I would absolutely suggest that to go to our website and look at that. BNSF is a chamber member who has actively said that they want to participate in education and workforce development, and that they have opportunities available. And so that would be one way. I know that it's difficult, and from talking to our students and doing internship and externship outreach, it's just really difficult. How do you find that opportunity, right? We can spend a lot of time on Google and send a lot of emails out there to, info at, help at, contact at, and, not really get anywhere. And so working with an organization like ours, we are connectors and conveners. So we connect people to opportunities, and we convene, usually in person, but now virtually. Happy to provide some virtual introductions. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add just about, even expanding it to, I'm looking for pursuing a career, in X industry. Where do I start? And, again, particularly thinking about, they're a minority, and, where would someone go about, pursuing, their next career path? Any thoughts or feedback? Dale has thoughts, I can tell. Perfect. Well, if no one else has anything to add, we'll go on to the next question. And so one of the questions was about broadband, tech, infrastructure access. I think we did talk about that a little bit. We, like everything else, like any challenge, it is going to require partnerships, right? And that's how this happens when we reach out with courage to accept the challenge, and we work together in partnership and collaboration. So whether that's trying to figure out how to get more technology in the hands of students, trying to figure out how do we afford to have more paid internships or do these public-private partnerships within schools. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts to add about that question. Again, specifically, how do we make internet access a utility to help transition to more remote learning?
I'd love to add something here, because it's an amazing example of what can be done, especially as I run, like Susan was saying, the we can't because responses that we get to things. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in a very, 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 very rural, remote area in West Africa, and they still do not have electricity in my village. But I can't, 35 years later, but I can communicate with my village brother because everybody there has a cell phone, and they don't need to have a hard connectivity thing. Everything goes through satellites. So developing countries are skipping over things that we have said need to be in place in order for us to have some things happen. And so it never ceases to amaze me that he and I can communicate on WhatsApp and through, when he's in a city, through the internet, email, Facebook, etc. But my village would have better connectivity at this point than some of the rural areas in Washington State.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Mary. And so we do have 3 questions and about, 7 minutes or, oh wait, no. Yeah, 7 minutes. Just trying to keep an eye on the time so we can get to our virtual vendor showcase. So I'm going to try to get through them pretty quickly. So one is talking about how there is a lot of focus on STEM fields and STEM career paths. And so, you know, why is this? And do you think that this is an issue? Quickly for us, we focused our Southside Argonauts Youth Program on STEM career pathways because we have a lot of, you know, as Eileen said, we are kind of, you know, Silicon Valley 2.0. And so there's a lot of opportunities here, and those are great high wage, you know, earning opportunities. We also are looking at, you know, what does the future of work look like? And the future of work, you know, looks like it's pretty heavily focused in information and technology. And so that's why we're focusing a lot of it there. Again, we also really appreciate our partnerships, you know, with our apprenticeship and construction trades, because as Monty Anderson always says, you know, construction is one job you cannot outsource, right? So as Dale said, you know, I mean, we are building things here, and you need people that can do that work here. So that's kind of why we focus that. Again, we're looking at the job trends. We're looking at, you know, what that wage is. And so that's why we're prioritizing, you know, those particular career paths with trades and STEM. But open it up if anyone else has any questions.
I do. Hi. I think it's just not STEM, it's really digital literacy. Everything is digital now. No matter what position you take, it's no longer the manual, like check in or check out for going into work. It is now email. It is now a news system or a database. And it doesn't matter what position you hold, everything is electronic. Even shopping is electronic. And, you know, we're also seeing, you know, at Seattle Goodwill, we get, you know, we have retail, we have thrift stores, and all those funds from those thrift stores go to job training and education. But we're also seeing the brick and mortars not working anymore. It's all on e-commerce. Everyone's going online to shop. So we're also starting to look at the trend and the fact that we can't go ahead and do retail training as much as we have done in the past of doing customer service and retail training. We're starting to look at how do we do e-commerce training or training online, anything of that sort to really see the trend that's happening, because digital is only going to evolve even more.
And I just need to, you know, whenever we talk about STEM fields or you know, digital literacy and technology fields, I always have to say, but somebody has to educate them. Right? They don't magically fall from the sky and into these career pathways. So what I would argue that when we talk about digital literacy, when we talk about STEM careers, let's talk about the teaching profession. Let's talk about what we're doing to make the teaching profession one that, you know, it's folks who, you know, are just, who love science, who love math, who love tech will agree to educate that next generation of folks too.
Great. So a couple more questions, again, try to just get through them pretty quickly here. One, this may be more directed towards you, Dr. Enfield. You know, how can we ensure that, you know, we have more people of color, you know, educators, and that non-people of color educators and staff, you know, are culturally, you know, aware, you know, working with, you know, with people of color students and relating to that in education?
Sure. So, you know, I'll start just sort of with our teaching workforce. And in Washington State, our teaching workforce is predominantly white, and Highline traditionally has not been an exception. But we have invested heavily in recruitment and retention policies and practices in Highline. So while our overall teaching population isn't as diverse as we'd like it to be, when you look at the teachers we've hired in the last 5 years, we've increased the diversity of our hires by 40%, which is significantly higher than many other places. Now what we're having to focus on now, though, is what do we do as a system that has traditionally not been welcoming to staff of color? What are the changes we have to make as a system so that we can keep the good people that we hire here? And that's, I think, an ongoing work in progress for us. But I also think that we are very, very clear, very proud of our diversity in Highline, and we lead with that. So I think it has to do with how do we get the right people here and then provide them with opportunities to understand the students and families that they are privileged enough to be serving. And again, that is ongoing work. And I can just tell you that you can provide trainings, you can provide courses, you can mandate whatever you want to mandate. But fundamentally, it comes down to finding adults who just want to know who their kids are and where they come from, period. And that they're willing to invest the time in doing that. That's what I did when I was a high school ELL teacher in California. I didn't get specific training in that, but I knew that if I had any hope of engaging my students in learning, they had to know that I was taking the time to know who they were and respect them for that and learn from them.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Next question. How are we making efforts to help our homeless kids in our schools right now? How are we delivering these devices, these hotspots? How are we, connecting with our homeless students now?
So I can start on that, Andrea. So in Highline, we've been deploying vans and buses to go out to students, particularly those who live outside of the district, and provide them with devices. We have secured, we have an order in for, I think, about 1,500 hotspots. To date, we've gotten about 600. They're just really hard to get right now, even if you have the money. But we've prioritized the hotspots that we have, that we are giving them first to our students who are in transition, technically are homeless, so that they have those. So we are also doing our best to connect to make sure that those students, that to the best of our ability, we can get them meals and to make sure that they're getting fed. So it's an ongoing effort for all of us in Highline.
Great. Final question, just right there at 12:15. How does this crisis affect, AP and AP testing? So I'm sure this is probably coming from a very concerned student is wondering, what happens now? Or is there a resource or a place where they can go for more information on what's happening?
Is that around AP specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, we're actually going to be, so first of all, you can go online. The College Board has a ton of resources and information online. Now that assumes you have connectivity. We've been talking about those barriers, but I know in Highline, our College Career Center, our secondary team is putting a lot of information out and I think we're actually going to have a virtual AP prep party next week to make sure that students have all the resources and supports they need to take those exams at home this year.
Perfect. Great. Well, with that, we will conclude our Q&A portion. Again, thank you so much to, Mary, for your keynote, for helping facilitate. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Jonathan, I will see you later as one of our mentors for the new virtual Southside Argonauts program. So we'll probably see you much sooner. And again, so I have a couple questions in the Q&A just before we wrap up with our final questions or final thoughts. And that is yes. Where can we find more information about the companies that presented today? And get information on the employers and their needs. And that is all available at seattlesouthsidechamber.com/career-showcase. And so that will be available. And also, I believe, Renata, maybe you can go ahead and put that in the chat. Oh, you already did that. You're so fast. I appreciate that so much. So again, that's where you can go for more information on that. Just want to say again, thank you to everyone who submitted their video and was able to talk about what opportunities are available. Thank you so much to Mary Furtakis for the keynote and facilitating our panel discussion. Thank you to Dr. Enfield and Eileen. Dale, thank you so much to Jonathan. Jonathan probably had to slip out a little bit because he still does have virtual schoolwork that he needs to do, and we really appreciate the partnership. Again, success looks very different for every one of us as individuals, but together, if we work together, we can create opportunity with more access for a more equitable community and a more robust future in our economy. So again, this is what we're trying to do. We're working smarter and better together in collaborative partnership. That's our philosophy. That's what we were founded on, that belief. We're stronger together. So again, appreciate everyone making the time to be here today. Thank you also to all of the committee members on the panel. Thank you to the Auburn School District, Federal Way, Highline, Kent, Renton, Tukwila School Districts. Thank you again to Local 242, U.S. Army, WorkSource, King County. Thank you to the Port of Seattle. Thank you to the RTA. We appreciate all your partnership. Thank you, everyone. Be well, be safe. Thank you for being here.